we've now just shown both styles of bot lane play. We saw the Lucian Nami, right? And then we see the Yumis or the Lulus behind the Sivers and the Zeris. And so, because that would have been my initial concern, right? Was when you talk about a team that needs to get stuff done in the bot lane, if the meta, as it shifted, doesn't necessarily suit them, can they really generate those advantages? But it seems like they kind of have anywhere they can go.
And that's why I think Aphelios is going to step up a lot more as we come into groups. I think teams like EDG are really going to highly prioritize picks like the Aphelios that can enable Viper, enable them in the 2v2 as well, especially with engaged supports coming back into the meta. Viper and Mako feel like they're set and primed to show why they're considered one of the best, if not the best bot lane in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the flexibility, you know, from Viper actually even having a Vladimir game in there. One of the things that I'm never worried about with Viper is that if he can play the meta or not, right? When we think back to even Mage meta bot, he was one of the guys that could nail that. He could play Yasuo's bot, he could play Aurelia. Like, this guy can literally play every champion in the game at the highest level, it feels like. So the meta changes for me were never a worry for Viper and the EDG bot lane.
And the biggest thing is just how consistent they are in that bot side as well. Like, it always feels like they're firing on all cylinders. I think I can remember one series over the entire year where they didn't step up, but they do have to go up against Kerry and Co in that bot side. I think when we look at these two supports as well, I think this is where we start to see a very different style, right? Yes, Mako can bring out some of these enchanters, but he has looked significantly more comfortable, even when we think back to 2021 Worlds, on the engaged champions, whereas Kerry, we know, can bring a whole lot to the table.
This is meaningless, but I have to bring it up. Do you guys realize between the two graphics that each of the 4 players has 5 unique picks? It's like exactly mirrored. What the heck? I just find that odd from a numbers perspective. Also, that Annie pick?
Yeah.
Please, God, show me that on the world stage.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a lot of fun. I think people
It's a
are...
flex pick. Flandre plays as well, I'm just saying.
Okay, let's go. Let's go.
People, I think, are really interested and excited to also see, you know, how T1's bot lane is going to look here, because a lot of people felt that though the T1 bot lane as a whole wasn't doing as well in this split, you know, Gumayusi having an off-summer split, as I said, Keria people still felt performed well, but was sometimes limited by the fact that enchanters were so much of the meta. And this guy really is truly unreal when he is playing those engaged supports. So having the meta shifting more back towards engaged supports could really benefit the T1 bot lane.
Yeah.
And maybe they are going to be a revitalized 2v2.
And I like that you bring up right at the top of the segment how there was maybe some struggles or underperformance out of the bot lane Gumayusi for T1, and what that then lends to is the idea that it was the top side of the map that had to perform for this team in order to get them to this point.
Yeah, and I think Zeus was able to step up massively when he's able to try and play these carries. He did have a little bit of a slip off when it came in towards playoffs,
Sure.
but I think with the way the meta is moving back towards those carries in the top lane, I'm expecting Zeus to then become this standout performer even more so than he already has for T1 and kind of being that big carry that the team needed.
I mean, it's just going to be really exciting to watch Zeus play. You know, like I'm kind of more on the 369 side, but I think it's pretty much in everyone's mind. It's between 369 and Zeus for who's the best top laner in the world. You know, when you talk to pretty much everyone, those are the two names that immediately come to top of mind. You know, we saw Solid said won a game from 369, you know, nothing that was super showy because he is playing that more supportive style, but I really want to see some of these elite top laners bringing out carries, really showcasing what they can do against the world's best.
Yeah, said 20.
And this is, yeah, exactly.
Elite.
And now,
Maybe an orange, maybe a Scion, you know.
I do want to see it.
but I think that's the big question mark now for Flandre, right? Flandre hasn't been performing like he did at Worlds 2021 when we saw them last time. Flandre's really had a underwhelming split, and I think the biggest problem now is that this is where you have to show what you're capable of, and there's a lot of people pushing the narrative, and I do agree that EDG's top side is the weak point of EDG.
Well, and that's why I'm also really interested to see, like, will they pivot at all, right? Because we know that Flandre in the past could play the carries, right? They won Worlds and he was playing carries and he was playing that
Jason
dominance,
Graves.
that style. Exactly, right? So it's not as though you're like, well, I don't know if he's ever been able to do it, but this year, and specifically in playoffs, it was like Flandre was just his one-man army, and then the rest of the team would play towards bot, right? And they basically, no matter what he picked, he was on his own, right? And I do think that he was taken advantage of pretty heavily in some of those series and in some of those games, but largely because his opponents knew that no one was going to be up there. There was not going to be, you know, a roam to actually answer a potential dive or a stacked wave. It was really him as that one-man army. So, you know, was that a failure in EDG's playstyle, or was that their read on how it was best to play in the previous meta? Because this meta, clearly, it is more about playing towards top than 12-15 was.
I do just briefly want to update our audience that we are investigating a small audio issue with the headset, which gives us a little bit more time to talk. Not that I ever want to delay the game, but in this sense, I'm almost glad because the lane we haven't touched on yet is that mid lane. And I don't think you can go to a T1 game on the international stage without talking about Faker first. But this mid lane matchup is so interesting because on the opposite side is Scout, somebody who sat behind Faker in the T1 org for a period of time before hopping over to EDG.
And this is why I've been so incredibly excited to see this matchup. Like, even when you think about Scout, when he came over to the LPL, it was the exact same champion pool as Faker at the time, right? Syndra, Azir, these were the picks that he was shining on and showing off on. The LeBlanc as well was the other big one. And then he came over, and as time has gone on, we've seen these two take very different paths, right? We're still looking at Scout playing things like the Azir. He's the best Azir that we have in the LPL, but he's looking to be significantly more lane dominant. Whereas when we look across at Faker, Faker has gone towards more this facilitator style where he's looking to play puppet master on the map, wants to make sure that he's got a hand in all the pies at once and trying to help everyone as he can.
Well, I think something that's really interesting about that is that if you are trying to play a facilitator role and you are trying to play one of those picks that wants to push and move, well, if someone you're playing against someone that's incredibly lane dominant and actually has you locked under your tower, it really does limit your ability to do that. I'd also say that, I felt that Scout still played the map very, very well. Even if he is playing a hyper carry style, he does often create lane advantages for himself, and then he uses that to move around the map and facilitate, often the 2v2 edges that were really built. Where I do think both these teams sometimes struggled was, how to move the game forward in mid-game and late game. So it will be interesting to see, which teams have really kind of improved in their mid and late game stages and how they want to move it forward if it is more at even keel.
And I think this kind of falls back to the problem that we've seen for EDG, right? Where they traditionally are a very lane dominant team, both from Scout and from Viper and Nakel on that bot side, but when they haven't been able to get that, they can't enact their game plan of, hey, we're going to play for dragons, we're going to play for the late game fights, we're going to have this hyper carry and Viper and Scout just pop the hell off, and that's where we're going to be able to carry from. So I definitely agree with Zale. It feels like a huge amount of this is going to be a case of who can get that control in the early points of the game to then lend itself towards the later stages, especially when you look at like Faker, how good he was at moving on things like the Ahri, setting up stays for success, and then playing towards that Rift Herald on the top side.
How do we expect the junglers to factor into this? I mean, obviously I can pull a couple things from what you guys have said already, just based on the idea that EDG wants to play towards bot, T1 a little bit more towards top. Is splitting the map really as easy as, quote unquote, I say easy as it is, or do you actually want to see these teams challenge each other a little bit on what they would maybe consider to be their strengths?
Yeah, I definitely think we'll see these two teams challenge each other quite a lot in the early stages, because I think when you both, like, we've easily identified where the big talking points on the map are, right? It's not like these teams haven't done the same.
Right.
But I think the big thing is looking at like how these champions are going to fit in, because I feel like for JJ, I have seen him go for things like the Graves and the Hecarim in the past, but that's not really where his style is most suited. He's much more suited towards things that can have that early pressure, where he can play towards bot side. Vi, Jarvan, I mean Maokai even that we're starting to see come in. So I think that's where we'll see a lot of that focus. And then for Owner, I'm just really excited to see him match that. Like, we know him for a fantastically Sin, go towards these early picks, fight toe to toe, and see if you can bring these mid laners involved so we just get a massive ruckus all over the board.
Well, and to me, honestly, like my real interest is about the draft, right? Because it depends on what kind of win conditions they want to draft for. And both these junglers, I think, are flexible. Both these teams are incredibly intelligent, so they're going to cater their gameplay to what is going on in game, right? We saw last time in the previous game, EG creates an advantage over JDG in bot lane, so Inspired is hovering more towards that. And we see on the other side, Kanavi realizes, okay, well, we don't necessarily want to play 3v3 down there against this fed Vera, so I'm going to go top and get fed. And I think that we are going to see all these elite junglers, catering their game plan to what is really going on and to the draft as well. I wouldn't be shocked to see if T1 goes for some sort of counter pick top, that Owner's just going to try to slam that home, and they're just going to try to play loss mitigation on bot side.
Yeah, I agree. I think the biggest one is going to be a case of, as well, is like, how do these early fights kind of tend out? Because I think skirmishing in these early stages is going to play such a big factor, especially when you look at, again, like if Scout is going to go towards things like the Azir, where you can push and then try and run down towards Dragon, or if we're looking at the Lissandres and the Aries and that kind of stuff for Faker, where you can actually look for those early plays.
I think Lissandra is such an underrated pick, and throughout LPL and LCK playoffs, it's nasty.
And one of the best Lissandras out there, man who goes by the name of Faker. Let's see if he's willing to bring it out in this one here. T1 on one side, EDG on the other. The players are ready to get on stage and do battle for that first win at group stage. Let's head out there and meet them.
It's time for a clash we've all been waiting for. First, the most dominant team we've ever seen, 3-time world champions, led by the unkillable Demon King, T1! But New York, there's another king in town. One of the most iconic teams in the game, the reigning League of Legends world champions, Edward Gaming! I want to hear you roar for T1 versus EDG!
Oh, we're in for a treat. T1 versus EDG, the desk already highlighted so many storylines. You got Faker versus Scout, the best bot lane in the world. Zeus, one of the best top laners in the world. There's going to be a lot of skill expression in this game.
Yeah, I mean, crazy just how many times. It feels like these guys are fated to end up in the same group at pretty much every international they go to together. But I'm definitely going to be keeping my eyes on that top side that you just talked about, seeing if Flandre can keep up with Zeus. Because, I mean, Flandre's a guy who was a carry player once before, but has had to lean a lot more on things like the Gragas Sidar these days.
And can Gumushi and Keria keep up with Viper and Mako is another question. We've seen Gumushi struggling a little bit throughout the summer season, ever since the meta changes towards bot. First it was the Aphelios Jinx, looked really good. Now they've gone to more of like a hyper carry and chance meta, and now we've moved to a facilitating any carry meta, where I think Gumushi will feel a bit more comfortable.
I think that certainly could be the case, especially when we're seeing Aphelios do so well across the tournament thus far. So it feels like we potentially are going to start to see T1's bot lane coming back into the form we knew them for versus EDG. And you heard it from Isaac already on the analyst desk. Best 2v2 bot lane in the world. These guys are terrifying.
I think this meta shift helps T1. I mean, more carries top, more facilitators bot. I think that's their bread and butter, whereas Viper Mako or the Lucian Nami, you know, probably one of the best Lucians in the world next to Ruler, right? So a little bit less more agency. Definitely something I'm not sure Viper will easily be able to pull off, right? It just hinders the amount of plays that they can make on the map together.
And that's why I'm really curious to see how this draft goes, because these teams have a lot of shared champions. Things like the Azir being both Scout and Faker's most played. The Aphelios, you just hit on for Gumayushi, that was Viper's second most played after Zeri in the regular season. So I think both teams already training some interesting bands. Faker, I mean, a legend on LeBlanc, not wanting to go toe-to-toe with Scouts.
Definitely not. We're seeing a lot of meta bands coming out here. Caitlyn, Maokai, Aatrox is the next one. Yuumi is a champ that we're wondering is it worth first picking, right? Sejuani is another one. It's a really strong jungler, can also be flex top. We saw it as well. There's the Sejuani ban. Ornn was another ban on blue side that we saw last game as well from JDG. Maybe so much of a targeted ban, but Flandre, a couple of more games, own games under his belt.
Yeah, and I actually feel like the Aatrox prio rises significantly here for the side of T1, because again, Flandre, not one of these players who really leans into the Fiora. Played a bit of Jax, but not something we're seeing all too much. So to me, that's what it looks like T1's angling for.
Seeing what the option is going to be here on the final ban, and it will be the Aatrox. You highlighted it. EG saw it coming. The prio is there. But what now is the response for T1? Pick the litter on available AD carries. What are they going to go towards?
Is it a Zero first pick, I wonder? Both these mid laners just love this champion so much. No, it's going to be the Yuumi. First pick for T1. I wonder what AD carry they'll pair that up with. We'll have to wait and see on the 2-3.
Like you're saying, though, for me, the Azir's still standing out just for the fact of that LeBlanc ban being so prominent. We saw it doing quite well in play, and it seems like DFM really leaning on it to find some wins against unexpected teams.
We talked about Lucian Nami falling out a little bit of the meta since the nerfs, but Kalista's another champ that can fill that void if Viper wants to lock that in. Agency is the name of the game. And they're going to have a lot of proactivity on the bot side of the map.
And the thing that excites me, believe it or not, is not the Viper Kalista, it is what it will enable for Mako. What aggressive support pick we can see come out from him, because he is one of the greatest playmakers in the game, especially when he gets his hands on any kind of hard CC.
He's got a plethora of options. We could see Nautilus on 3, we could even drop it to 4-5. Renata can work too if he wants to play a bit more of the ranged matchup. Now it's going to be a Sivir Yumi here for T1. Could slam a Kalista Alistar here if EDG are feeling it in terms of finding those all-ins. Of course, Sivir really weak against the Alistar, but that's Faker's Akali locked in up against Scout.
Yeah, and again, really interesting when the desk was hitting on it, you were hitting on it, things like Sivir Yumi coming in when this could have been a favorable meta for T1, but at least Faker wanting to show a carry performance against his old understudy. Now looking at what EDG go on 3, they could just go towards support and match like you said as well, but if they want a favorable jungle option, but no, bringing back the Renata.
Yeah, I think Renata is such a powerful pick alongside the Kalista. We could also see something like a Jarvan here on 4 for JJ. Hasn't played it that much throughout the regular season, but it's really good in things like the Sivir. We'll see what happens in this 4-5 bands where we've got a situation where mid and bot are picked for both sides. It's just jungle top really. T1 have the blind and they want to deny the strongest jungler from EDG, whereas EDG can take away those blinds, things like the cannon.
Makes a ton of sense, and of course, EDG are going to have the luxury of the final pick here. Would not be surprised at all to see that save for Zeus at this point. Not really a lot of reason to counterpick jungle in the current meta, although it could still happen. Faker on the Akali, though, pretty exciting to watch, of course, especially when there's a Yumi potential as we move into the mid to late game. Another bruiser that the Yumi could mount onto. Feels like it would be very strong from the side of T1.
I'm actually kind of curious what you think, Cage, about things like the Hecarim, right? Because in playing such a high prio, you have Sivir Yumi, but it feels like today in groups, we're barely seeing it at all.
Yeah, I wonder if people just don't like the way farming junglers work, if they're not kind of self-sufficient like a Graves, right?
Yeah.
Where he can actually skirmish alone, whereas Hecarim needs things around him to kind of draft around the champ itself, right? When you look at EDG, my read is Junjia was just the early game jungler. Pick him Poppy, pick him Trundle, he'll get to an early game read, whereas JJ's more of like the Wukong, more of like the team fight orientated jungler. But the one jungler that stands out is Vi, I feel like, for JJ. He has an incredible win rate on it. I wonder if that's something he wants to pick up here, but there's the Jarvan ban up against the Sivir. You want to take that away and deny the engage on the Sivir. Vi is the follow-up after that, and it's going to get locked in.
Excellent read, Cage. Obviously solid early game ganks as well. See what they can do and what the response is realistically going to be here from the side of T1. We have to debate here. Final round of picks. We'll need to blind pick their top laner as well.
We have seen a lot of teams leaning towards things like the Fiora, and you know, champions like Gnar fall out of priority, but that was definitely something that Zeus leaned heavily on in the regular season.
You might have just hit the nail on the head. It's going to be a Zeus blind pick Fiora. We'll see what Flandre's got in his back pocket to deal with that. He's played a plethora of range champs, can also play things like the Jax or a tank if needed. But Zeus coming out confident in this first game of Worlds for him. Now it's on Owner, what he wants to pick. We've seen a little bit of Viego today. A lot of junglers have been pinched. Wukong's kind of falling in and out. Lee Sin could be the pick, but it's a bit dangerous to go for Lee Sin because you're playing really heavy single target damage, lacking engage. Viego doesn't really fill that hole either very well, but at least you get resets. But Owner's going to go for it. Lacking engage, a lot of single target, but he's confident that he'll pull it off.
Confidence in his own ability, confidence in his ability to land the kicks here. The hover overs coming through. What is the option going to be? How are they going to deal with the problem with Zeus on the top side of the map? It feels like something that is so hard to handle. Are we going to see a tanky option? We've seen this matchup a few times today. The Ornn could come through. A lot of team fight power on the side of EDG. Hard to weather the storm, yes, but if you make it to mid to late game, we saw exactly how strong this pick can be.
It's a no-brainer. Look at EDG's comp. It's really well-rounded. Really good scaling, good engage, good team fight, fantastic early game through bot. I think EDG's comp is well-rounded, better than T1's, I would say, but T1's has skill expression. It has mobility. Fiora, Lee Sin, Akali, if you can make these individual outplays in team fights, you will take over the game. It's on EDG to shut this top side of T1 down.
Yeah, and I mean, even just things like marking flanks in team fights is going to be so crucial for EDG, wanting that front to back. And again, for the side of T1, I think things looking pretty solid, especially Owner on the Lee Sin is something I'm absolutely terrified of seeing.
Playmaking is the name of the game for T1. Side lanes is the name of the game for T1. You touch on it, flanks as well. These are the things that EDG need to think about when they approach Dragon Pits. There's going to be a flank from Lee Sin. Faker is going to look for the flank as well. Zeus is going to be hitting your tower, so you're going to be under pressure. If they can keep calm, their front to back is stronger. It's just on T1, how much can you work with? How much can you perform with? How much can you pull off with this draft?
And we've seen how hard it can be if you don't get ahead on compositions that scale, or against a composition that scales so well like EDG's, how the game can fall apart so quickly for you. But there is a Yumi on the opposite side. There's a Fiora, there's an Akali to mount up onto. If T1 get an advantage, this game is going to feel so incredibly impossible for EDG.
I feel like drafts have like a skeleton that kind of check them out. Early game that can bridge you to the mid game that can get you to the late game, and engage, right? These are the 3 or 4 things that you think about in a draft to make it well-rounded. The Kalista will get them to the early game, the Azir will get them to the mid game, and the Ornn will help them through the late game in terms of engage and the itemization, right? To just catch up on gold leads if they're behind. So T1 needs to focus really heavily on this top side. The Yumi can facilitate that, but I feel like EDG are going to play for these bot dives.
Yeah, and it's just been stock and standard EDG, how they played all split. It's how they took down RNG. Again, MSI champions twice in a row. They're going to have to do it here once again.
Oh. This is it. T1 versus EDG. Stock standard level 1, wards in both brushes. Ranged matchup here, so you want to make sure you don't get any kind of cheese level 1. You want to make sure you can maintain that bot push.
My eyes especially are actually going to be on Owner because, right, we've been talking about T1 wanting this playmaking. A lot of this in my mind going to come online once we get closer to things like the level 6 mark where Faker does have a lot more pressure. Zeus, we know as well, going to get pushed in the first few levels against Flandre. So a lot's going to be on Owner to see if he can find any opportunities or at least prevent EDG from making any early plays towards bot because you know that's what they want to do with Viper and Kalista.
And I think the small kind of disadvantage T1 have in this early game is Akali won't really get the mid push. So when you're looking at these dives, there's no real way to contest it unless Owner can just kind of shadow them or Faker can threaten the TP down there. Scouts will push Faker in the early stages. Level 6 is where this comp comes alive in the mid jungle for T1. This is where they will start to have the kill pressure.
Yeah, and it's obviously a death sentence fall behind in the early game against a champion like Vi. Getting that ultimate online against a champion like Akali, limiting her ability to outmaneuver, get around some of these abilities. That said, looking on the top side, Zeus opting for the Ghost here, could chase Flandre down in the long side lane. If we have a game similar to what we saw previously where a tower goes down early, it's not going to be quite as easy for Flandre to just sit in lane and weather the storm.
Early trading in bolt, that second brush helping them out to gap close onto Kumiyushi. And Owner is pathing down towards that bot side, JJ similarly. So T1 looking for options top, they're looking to defend their bot lane in the early stages, and then I expect them to start playing through mid and shutting down Scout. And Faker will start to walk up, and of course the sustain the Akali has makes it so pushing her out of lane is quite difficult. Scout can get the push whenever he wants if he just puts 3 soldiers down and starts hitting the wave, but Faker will just have to micromanage the way Scout plays this lane, try to stay as healthy as possible, and look for a good TP back on a good item base. Zeus now stacking some top waves, or really hard to trade level 1 with Fjord with the Vitals.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see what ends up happening, especially like we were saying with Owner, because now EDG can be able to get this wave into turret, so could potentially set up for a bit of a bounce and bring JJ down to find this kill. But Owner, I mean, shadowing like we said, right? Because I feel like that was a big part of what we need him to do for T1 to get to the point in the game where they're hitting that power spike.
And while, of course, they probably could have predicted that Owner would be pathing down to the bottom side, spotting him out there with the Sentinel from the Kalista does certainly help. JJ now moving down as well. See if this is going to be a point of action on the map. Both junglers are going to stick around for now. Viper and Mako, no surprise, keeping the pressure up. Luma really going to struggle, and historically, Kalista feels so good in the Sivir, because when you push Spell Shield into the Sivir, there's no right answer. Yeah. You're always just going to get eat 'em. It's a difficult.
Or an ult, whatever it may be, something's going to hit you no matter what, right? So Faker getting a little bit chunked out here, Scout having that push, and when it comes to setting up these bot dives, it's very easy to say on paper, just dive bots, right?
Yeah.
But it requires a lot of setup. Viper needs to stack these waves into Gumyushi, make sure he can't step up to clear them, and thin the wave before it pressures, and then JJ needs to be around, and Owner needs to be marked to make sure that it's not a 3v3 dive. So we'll start to see JJ move down towards his bot side. We expect after this bot side crabber, look for a little bit of information as to where Owner is, who's actually just gone for a full clear. He will hit level 4, JJ is quite close to it. They will meet each other, and JJ will lose that 1v1, so playing a bit careful, playing on information, and T1 will spot out EDG's jungler.
You can see advantage for Owner, but is going to be forced to stick around here. Well, this way we set to crash into the tower. EDG not going to fish for the dive, but just going to keep the pressure up here as Flandre he's on survival duty. You know, he's just going to get bullied around. Oh, Zeus, that's clean.
He just riposted the kind of like knock-up that the Oran Q does for a frame of a second to stun Flandre, so good mechanical play there by Zeus. And the more that this lane is in isolation, the better it is for him, right? If it's all about the Owner covering bot and JJ threatening it, the Fiora will just find an advantage on her own. TP's coming back here from Scout and Flandre.
And interesting, we're already seeing double Grievous Wounds item coming in for Scout and JJ both. Of course, important to note that with the Doran's shield healing, with pots, with Second Wind coming in, and the Resolve tree, you're going to mitigate a lot more healing than you might initially expect. It does help you keep up lane pressure and lane advantage.
Even base health regeneration, right? It just stops a lot of that innate healing. Scout's feeling confident with Faker walking up there, going to use the E aggressively, of course. Can use this dash aggressively when you're close to your tower because you're always going to be safe. When you have the push, a little bit more risky, but not much action here. EDG looks for that bot dive, they fished for it, they looked for Owner, he was there, they can't pull it off. And Zeus still has TP here, just looking for plates, ignoring the Ornn, just taking Demolish into the Ornn because Zeus knows that even if he gets the half HP here, he's TPing back anyway, right? So not in any threat.
And I think the thing is, so often when we think about dominating topside matches, we think about solo kills, these big explosive moments, but this is Zeus just dominating without needing to get that solo kill, getting that tower, having this massive CS lead already. He's going to be a massive problem in early skirmishes around the top side. Herald is going to be so hard for EDG to contest, and thus Ornalt is perfectly hitting 3 targets.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something where for T1 that they're kind of banking on right now. You know, their bot lane's kind of fine, just chilling in the bot side. They are falling behind on CS, but it seems like that Herald is Scout. This is getting spicy in mid lane.
Needs to be careful. Doesn't have the TP, so Scout's winning out on these trades really hard. He's popping the potion right now, but Scout will slow stack this. The more he can spot out Faker, the more he'll decide on what to do with this wave. The longer Faker shows, the slower he'll push this wave. When Faker doesn't show, he'll push it in as quick as possible. Faker dings over to level 6, and with this pressure mid and pressure bot, EDG setting up for this dragon.
Makes a lot of sense. Have the Kalista have this early game power. We talked about passing over this kind of baton from the Kalista to the Azir in the mid game. Things going smoothly so far for EDG, despite the advantages that Zeus is building on the top side, not able to amount to much objective control. First dragon for EDG, and Scout just keeping the pressure up mid.
And for the side of T1, right, Faker going to need to go for a base right now, but getting closer to that 8-minute mark where they finally can try and play for some semblance of an objective. The thing I'm interested in seeing is if EDG want to commit their bot lane up to top side, since they have been able to keep a push and should have that tempo to where they can try and force that numbers advantage and, again, kind of prevent T1 from finding the advantage where they should.
And we see that often when it comes to tank versus carry matchup where Ornn or Sion, the tank is struggling against the carry, so the best thing to do is with your winning bot lane from draft, put your bot lane into the Fiora, push her in, and the Ornn will be safe under tower farming. And the Ornn is just innately harder to dive than the Fiora, right? So what will happen there is T1 will have to swap around and match, and you'll see EDG just keep swapping their bot lane top and bot on every wave to keep the mismatch. We'll see if they do that when the Herald spawns in a minute from now, but Zeus just still constantly ignoring Flandre here, looking for plates with this Demolish off cooldown, keeping the top push so that Owner has somewhere to play towards. He can get this top grab you can see on the minimap, whereas on the bot side, he really struggles to find any contest up against JJ with Scout and Viper having this constant mid and bot push.
It's a struggle for Flandre. Just a big cannon minion with a lot of wave clear in this one. Can't kill him, but can just walk up and take those plates. Faker now moving down to the bottom side. This is big, especially as highlighted previously. 30 seconds away now from the Herald. Level 6s are going to start to tick over. This is where Owner really going to start to come online with this Lee Sin kick. Maybe looking to keep the pressure up on the top side. He's now coming in for a lane gank.
Yeah, and I actually really like the way that T1 played this window. Have Faker lean down towards the bot. If you can find something in this time window, it lets Gumayushi and Keria push in so then they actually can preemptively maybe start to hover up, set up Owner to go for this Herald, which it looks like he wants to do with the pressure that Zeus is able to keep up by himself. But look at JJ and Scout. They don't want to let this happen.
And look at Viper and Mako. They're already basing to sprint towards this top side. I think they know that the 3v3 top side is a bit of a 50-50. They're not sure if they'll win it. They have mid push, yes, but T1 has top push. So Mako and Viper going to take a base here and should be here first. We'll see what happens here because JJ might just start it up with Scout being around and his bot lane being on the way, but EDG don't have information on T1's bot lane. We're actually not going to move up here and contest it. So we could see a trade-off here where EDG just get a free Herald. And what will happen here is Viper will move bot when he sees Gumayushi and he'll stay mid until just in case he tries to contest it.
Of course, T1 know that this is happening as they do have a ward in the pit, and the sweeper from JJ was not able to spot that one out. Scuttlecrab as well, so have the information, but it seems like they do not have the strength here going into this skirmish against the level 6 Kalista. Surely a death sentence, so they will back off, they will concede this, but sadly for them, not really able to trade it back for anything meaningful.
I will say though, I mean, look at the bottom half of the jungle. T1, Owner, Keria aggressively baiting, so, I mean, Viper and Mako have to be so careful. They actually might walk into a bit of a trap.
Uh-oh. Owner lurking in the shadows. The sweeper will spot him out, but
How strong those Lee Sin buffs going to be? Not strong enough to go for the 100-0, that's for sure. Will be just forced to walk away. Happy with the blue buff at least.
So EDG lose roughly a wave, but T1 don't get a plate for it. So the Herald should pay back that deficit that Viper just lost, and I wouldn't be surprised to see JJ put that Herald either bot or mid, where most of the pressure is. But again, constant isolation, 30 CS lead right now for Zeus. Flandre will get a couple of these creeps on the tower, but just ignoring the Ornn, looking for plates. Demolish procs, take good bases when the waves are pushed in. And as long as he knows JJ's bot side, this is just going to be a bit of a horror for Flandre, right? There's not much he can do in response.
And it feels like for T1, that's what you're going to have to bank on, because I also wouldn't be surprised to see EDG just end up saving this Herald for when Dragon's going to spawn in a minute 20 seconds and try and get to that condition where they're stacking up Dragons, they're forcing T1 to fight them maybe a bit sooner than they would want to.
And that's exactly what we talk about when we talk about teams that have these big ways to force fights, is stacking these drakes so you can bring them to you, so you can stop that split pusher from just trying to end the game on a silence. I think it's so incredibly difficult to do. So Zeus right now, having a great time, a wonderful time. 30 CS lead, he's taking plates left and right. He basically doesn't have a lane opponent right now because of how weak Thorn is into the Fiora. But as we get later and later into the game, his job becomes much more complex than just dominating a 1v1.
So here's the Herald mid, more gold over the Scout. You can see the gold lead now, 500-600 gold in his favor with those extra plates in the CS lead. And I think EDG have figured out the only way T1 can crack this game open is through mid. Scout is their most vulnerable player. So as long as Viper and Mako keep on bot push and they keep some vision around mid for Scout, then there's no real action for Owner to look for. Tops in isolation, they lose 3v3 bots, so it's just about holding on right now for T1, giving up these early drakes. 20 seconds on the spawn though. Komayushi could get this wave in level 7. Owner's hovering around and JJ's on his camps.
Ulti coming out, final chapter. Not gonna find the third stack on a Mako that's massive. They're not able to snare a single target, so just using the ultimate, getting a bit of pressure, but nothing else.
Small window. Now the question is, does T1 look for the dragon themselves? Yes, you got Viper's flash, so Owner can make a play on him if they do decide to walk up. But Scout and Faker contesting midwaves right now to see who can get into River first. The bot lane of EDG, alongside their jungler, will start to walk up, clear out some of this vision. We could have a fight on our hands here.
Viper standing back. Has to be careful here. Faker now looking for the collapse. Scout coming down as well. Kali ulti up and available. Owner fishing for the kick. Advantage. Viper now stepping forward. JJ now going in, looking to lock down Gumayushi, but the flash stops it. Ulti comes out as well, but not really connecting on anybody from Mako. Mako now being pulled back. Ignite now taking Faker, looking to finish up some kills. Faker looking to find Mako, getting pushed back. Scout keeping him alive. The objective, can they take it? That's one for the side of T1. But the stacks are there. Faker now, Faker, everything on him. Guma still standing strong, the flash forward. The absolute confidence, he gets one. Can he get two? Faker doesn't have four, they can't finish Guma. It's massive for the side of T1. The Dragon's still standing. Scout now walking away. TP now coming in. Fjord just returning to the top lane. It is a mess on the bottom side. Scout still in the area, but T1 will finally take the cloud.
And we see T1 playing for those outplays, playing that game of inches, exactly what you said, Casual. Faker going in so aggressively, able to put the pressure there, and Guma's flash to follow up is beautiful.
Great skill expression there from T1, but I will say that both the engages were a bit scuffed there from both sides. Owner looking for a kick flash onto the support, I think it was, we'll have to see the replay. And then Scout and JJ just diving onto a Sivir who just spell shielded the Wild. From that point onwards, there's a lot of back and forth because both front lines had dived onto each other's back lines, and it was kind of like 2v2 split. Zeus getting that tower down, now 3 plates in his favor. So look at this again. So JJ says, I'm going to flash ult Guma here, so Guma spell shields. And then Owner, what does Owner do here? He looks for the kick flash onto Mako, but he gets pulled away as he flashes forward. So both engages are a bit scuffed, but from this point onwards, we see the skill expression from the mobility of T1. EDG trying their best to try to play as a team, play as a death wall, look for front to backs, but T1 just don't give it to them.
Yeah, I mean, again, Faker with that E just able to get right in the middle of them. So many of EDG's defensive tools are already used trying to find the aggressive play, and it gives that window for Guma to go in, find the kill, and the fact that carry on the Yuumi is such an annoyance. You know you aren't going to be able to finish off those low health bars.
And very big for the side of Team 1, not just because of the 1k gold advantage that they built, but they're slowing down the Dragon stack for the side of the EG, finding these advantages. Yep. Zeus didn't TP to that fight, he TP'd back top to keep pressing advantage here. Now he's got the Divine Sunder as well, it's only getting easier for him.
That top lane plate is on 1 HP, I think, so he's going to pick that one up in the next 30 seconds, you have to imagine. But now it's a window where T1 bot lane can start to contest. They've been pushed in all game long, but now Kobayushi has Kraken Slayer. Viper doesn't have his mythic yet. Faker's got a kill as well, so that negates the gold deficit he had from the plate. So the 3v3 slightly in their favor. Guma no flash though, so needs to be really careful of Vi just queuing over this wall. Kalista ulting in the Renata to get the initial spell shield.
Oh, Zeus also doing so much work. Engage.
Just trading ultimates really. JJ now taking so much damage. Scout out to the side as well, trying to zone away Faker. Owner on the way in. On the hunt has been used. Filing projectile connects on JJ. They cannot let that hit the Vi. Will dash out just in time as the tower falls topside. T1 are getting everything that they want across the map.
They really are, and you have to question what JJ's doing there. He just ulted into a Sivir spell shield again and got nothing. Sivir just ulted away, spell shielded the ult and just kind of ran. And now it's Owner and Keria on the aggressive, looking for the enemy blue buff. Scouts around, but JJ has no ult. And it looks like bases are coming in for the EDG bot lane. So now this side of the map that T1 was losing, they're now winning both sides.
Yeah, exactly. I actually love the way that T1's playing this, and it feels like, you look at EDG's comp, right? Again, there's a ton of scaling. You have an Ornn, you have an Azir, but I don't know how they're going to get Viper going when Faker now is putting up so much pressure in the mid lane. He can just constantly lean down. You see them weaving in, getting the vision, not allowing the push to come through. And it goes back to something that we were hitting on earlier, that it still leaves Zeus and Flandre in that 1v1, which is exactly what T1 want to go on as long as possible.
And you can see it's almost a 2,000 gold lead there for Zeus in this isolated 1v1 just purely from the flames. And now the Herald spawn, TP coming in from Scout. Could have a 5v5 around this Herald. Does T1 want to opt into a 5v5? Their Sivir has no summons, Faker's lacking summoners. Zeus is a bit split. JJ will find him, but the dash away will keep him safe. T1 posturing, poising, looking to contest this in the top side river. EDG going back to mid wave.
Backing away, tense exchange there. Neither side gonna burn any major cooldowns, just walking away from each other. Now trying to get mid wave control. Big thing here for the Sivir is she kind of weathered the early game storm of the Callista. Much better wave clear at this stage of the game. Viper not able to finish a Runeans yet, so pretty slow overall in taking that mid wave.
Yeah, no mythic for Faker, no mythic for Viper. Two crucial items for both of these carries. Deus.
Rocket Belt just picked up.
Rocket Belt just picked up. Faker coming out of base. T1 need to slow this down, wait for Faker to arrive. Gumiushi's a bit split, but Deus has a lot of confidence here.
Hard forcing, are they willing to commit for the 50-50? It's a big risk.
Oh, Runner just blocks it and takes it. It's so casual. Now Viper's in trouble. Viper's been locked down. They've got the Orno, but it doesn't look like it's going to be enough. Instantly Owner to the backside, looking, fishing for a kick. He will not find it. EDG running for their lives, getting cut down. The Yuumi empowering the carries. Faker with the double. EDG falling apart as T1 take the Herald. They take the fight. Flandre's running for the hill. Scout desperate to get something back, but just knocking him right back into his teammate. What are you doing? T1 monsters in the exchange.
And the Herald comes out, the owner stole. He's going to get the mid tier one. Is Faker going to take that E on the Scout? No, he is not. Are they going to look for a tier 2 as well? The T1 meat grinder, this Yuumi paying dividends for these mobility carries.
It's so great getting to see Faker be the one taking advantage of what Keria has to offer. The most decorated player in League of Legends history, popping off again against the most recent world champions.
It's so hard for EDG to find this fight because the amount of angles that T1 are coming from. Zeus was stepping up there in a kind of like a 1v5 when he's in mid lanes in base. His AD carries trying to reposition. How the hell does Owner get that Herald when they have so many Kalista Ren stacks in there? Zeus just runs forward with the Yuumi on his back. That's their engage. W's forwards on the Renato to get a stun onto the Ornn, and then Owner looks for the initial kill. Viper doesn't die here because of the bailout, so it looks good for EDG, but then Faker arrives.
Yeah, Faker gets right in their faces. Beautiful second hit of the ultimate deal to guarantee that kill on the Renata. And the fact that he was able to keep going is what blew my mind. But again, having Carry on top of him, supplementing with the heals, and Scout tries to knock him back, but kind of ends up giving Flandre his life.
JJ looking to steal this one back from Owner. Can he get it?
Time to see if he can get the 50-50. Are they going to push? He gets kicked out of the pit. They want to finish it. And Owner, this man doesn't miss. He pulls it back over the wall. Where's the fall? They take down the jungler. JJ going to back away now. Zeus so strong in the 1v1, leaving him isolated. One more stack. He's trying to finish it. He leaves back over the wall. The bailout. Not bailing in. Here goes Striker. The day, baby. Mako taken down. T1 see their window of opportunity. They take it. They take the drink. They take another fight. There's nothing left on the map for EDG. This is a slaughter.
One small overstep and T1 punish all of them running down the members of EDG, and they're in the perfect position. You can see Zeus pushing in body's going to pick up that turret. Gumayushi in mid. T1 just having a fantastic position on the map.
100% kill participation on Faker, Gumayushi, and Carrier right now. It's the mid and bot lane that we were unsure if they could step up because of their lane matchups, but they are performing in these river fights. Faker is taking over every second that he arrives, and we're going to take a look at this one again because JJ tries to look for the contest, the kick back so Owner can secure it, but the Vial to follow through.
Yeah, JJ wanting to go in, but I mean, sure they find the kill, but Zeus is so strong right now. The Vitals come up, and he's just able to pretty much take him down single-handedly. Once Faker gets here, it's over.
It really is. I mean, he has such a good angle here. He can go on absolutely anyone. He can go over the wall into Scout. He can go into Viper. Luckily for Viper, he dodges out on that Shuriken. Faker would have taken it back. And there was a lot of question marks around T1 coming into this tournament. Getting 3-0'd by Gen G, going to 5 games against Damwon. How strong is this team? But they're happy, they're smiling, and they're in form. The meta is good for them, and we're seeing a lot of playmaking coming out of their top side.
Again, just even to go back to the bot side, it's so crazy that we were saying, hey, the meta might be better for Guma, and they go back to exactly what was the staple all summer long, and they're making it work against who coming in a lot of people thought was the best bot lane in the world.
An impressive showing for T1, no doubt, and it's so difficult now for EDG. You do not get to quietly scale in this game anymore. Faker Zeus getting onto your back line. Odessa, as you can see them grouping up as 5. They pull back. Owner now pushing for the kick. That's going to be the hostile takeover. How much is it going to do? Ornal going in, but it's not hitting nearly as many targets as they need to. JJ now going to get taken down. Zeus finding the reset, finding the healing circle. Mako now going to get taken down. The bailout, again, is going to be useless. Faker fishing for Viper. He's going to take him down. Flandra. Oh, it's just like the laning phase, but this time so much worse. T1 and Faker dominating.
It's the solo lane. Faker might be in trouble though. He's going to get taken down by Scout. A little bit of revenge there for EDG. A consolation prize despite losing 4 members. Scout standing tall, but they're going to lose this bot tier 1. It's Zeus and Faker just running through EDG right now.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter that EDG do have all these AoE tools to be able to take a fight. Again, they're falling behind. They're losing control of the map. T1 are able to come from so many different angles, and they're just making it work.
How are you going to hit an Ornal on all of the necessary targets?
Yeah.
Akali is so mobile. Zeus with the Ghost, you can walk around it. Sivir with the ult. At this point, now that they're behind, it's so incredibly hard to play the fights as we see here.
And it looks so good because Owner goes in, gets knocked up straight away from the Vikyu and then dies, so it's a 4v5 from the get-go. But like you said, the Ornal goes wide, Keryas on top of Zeus, Faker's pushing Viper out, and Gubayushi's free hitting. So eventually, with a fight being so split in a front-to-back comp with Ornn and Azir, they just dominate you with their mobility. Zeus just diving Flantre right now. And as much as we talk about the top side of T1, I want to give a huge shout out to Carrier on this Yumi, right? He's also on 100% kill participation right now. He's a full AP Yumi with the Ludens, 10 stacks on the Dark Seal. This Yumi does a lot of damage.
I do not expect any team to let Yumi through against T1 again. Like, you just cannot let this happen. We were like, hey, carry on, playmaking support's going to be so huge at Worlds, but still able to make this work as well. And now, I mean, EDG are just in such a hole. For T1, I think just looking to play out through sides, you can already see both top and bot wave pushed in, try and get some semblance of control on top side jungle so they can start making play for the Baron.
Collapsing on Zeus. 4 members here trying to take down the top laner of T1. Surely he falls. Knocked down, shut down for EDG. Baron up, TP coming out. EDG instantly pull the trigger. They know this is their window of opportunity. They may concede mid for it, but they have to get it done. But Owner, already 2 smites this game. He has been clean. He has been undeniable in these objectives. Will he find another?
EDG have the Ren, they have the Kalista, they're stacking them up. It's a 4v5 for T1. Faker is alive. Gumayushi, Owner, and Keria. Can they do it?
Should be impossible. They managed to make it work. It's so close in the exchange, but EDG will take the Baron. Faker onto the backside trying to finish off Scout. Faker can't get it done. He goes in. He takes down Scout. That's going to be 1. Owner waiting over the wall. T1. Kuma now running. They're split. They've been knocked down. They might just be knocked out. TP coming in from Faker for the triple for Kuma.
The 4v5, they pulled it off. Faker got incredibly low at the start and they didn't manage to get the steal, but EDG were like fish in a barrel in that Baron pit.
T1 once again just have the number of their old rivals, completely stomping EDG.
Are they going to look for the end here? 10 seconds on Scout. We're 22 minutes into the game. This is the world champions. T1 are on to the Nexus Towers.
T1 tearing through the Nexus. Eyes on the prize, give them no quarter, take everything from EDG. Viper making up, fighting back, they're looking again.
Oh my God!
This will fall. 22-minute victory. T1 unleashed on the international stage.
What is this T1 team? The second they got a lead, they just didn't let it go. And my God, their team fighting with this composition was almost flawless.
They have silenced all the doubters already on day 1 here at World's group stage. Incredible performance from absolutely everyone. Doubts around Gubayushi, picks the Sivir, does his job fantastically. Keryas, Yumi, the mobility of the top side. EDG, despite having this good, well-rounded scaling comp, just had absolutely no answers to the skirmishes and the aggression from T1.
Second fastest game of the tournament. And Zeus is a promise realized. We knew he could dominate Flandra if he was set up to do so. He absolutely did. Left on that island, he built an incredible individual advantage. The rest of the team, you've weathered the storm now. Gumayushi and Keria against Viper. That's it. That's the storm, bro. And only more to show here from T1. Incredible performance.
Again, just so huge to see. I mean, right, we really need to see them play again so we can show their chance for revenge, but just the way they did it. Teams of this caliber, though, once they find leads like the way T1 did, they just don't let it go. And I mean, heck, again, right, it's been so long since T1 have been able to like pick up a trophy, pick up a championship. If coming back now, having the meta shift go in their favor, Faker saying it, he's back in an A. Last time he was in an A, what did he do? already off to a great start.
And even that's the tip of the iceberg, especially for bot lane picks, right? You think of Sivir Yumi, that's something that
Yeah.
we played throughout summer. We haven't seen things like the Varus. You know, Gumayushi likes to play things like the Jhin as well. So I think they have a deep champion pool in bot lane and the confidence to pull off things like the Lee Sin as well, who we haven't seen much in this tournament too. T1, they're only showing us the tip of what could be a lot of different champions coming into Worlds, which is a meta where I think you can play pretty much anything.
That's just an incredible first showing, too, for the group stage, because it puts every other team you're playing against, I think, on the back foot in draft. You're starting to worry about a lot of things you might not have been concerned about before. They let the Yumi through. We know that's a mandatory ban moving forward. And T1, with a performance that dominant, you don't learn a lot past that they're really good. So I feel for Ores to play them next, because it's going to be a tough one. But here you see most storied matchups, T1 RNG, T1 G2. I mean, they're legends for a reason.
I just love how many of them T1 is involved in. I kind of expected T1 EDG to be a bit higher up, but T1 just, again, making so many international appearances, it's no surprise.
Yeah, RNG T1 being the top of that. A lot of games back and forth. These orgs on your screen, just historic, kind of legendary organizations, always making it to these World Championships. And Owner done dirty a bit on that damage graph. He always kind of went in and died, and it was his solo laners kind of picking up a little bit of the slack, but he was engaging on the Lee Sin, and then it was Zeus engaging on the Fiora, right? It was a very complicated way to find angles into it, but they just went head first most of the time.
Yeah, you can see Scout trying to fire back, but ultimately, such a difficult thing to do, even the Yumi damage. That's a sign of dominance.
Yeah.
When the Yumi gets to build full AP and gets to do that much damage, you're usually having a pretty damn good game.
Honestly, just again looking at EDG's damage number, talking about EDG, just Jejin not able to find the impact, again kept ulting the spell shield of the Sivir, and the fact that EDG as a whole just couldn't find a way to get their bot lane going was so damning.
They couldn't crack the map open. They got 0 towers that game, EDG. It's so hard to force river vision and work with skirmishes when all your outer towers are gone and you haven't got a single one on your side, because you don't have a side to play through for bot push, mid push, top push. Every lane was just struggling ever since Gumayushi and Keria evened up the lane. So you have no options to push out lanes and then look for collapses. You're just kind of walking head first into darkness. You have no vision.
We have to assume that EDG are going to look back at that one, especially at some of those vials that just got consumed by Sivir spell shields. And if there's this disconnect here between the team where they're like, we think we have the follow-up, that when Sivir ults and runs away, that we're going to be able to get there, because those moments in the early game where EDG looked a little lost, where they weren't quite all on the same page, T1 pounced on that and made a massive lead.
JJ's Vi has been outstanding during summer, I must say. I think he had like 70% win rate in 10 games, and it's an amazing chance to get them 2 Worlds, right, against RNG in that series. But the thing is, those ults, he was underperforming this game. As much as I want to celebrate T1, I will say JJ a little bit of an underperformance when it comes to finding these bot 3v3s. It's on him to engage these bot 3v3s, but he never finds the right angle. He's always ulting into the Sivir spell shield.
We'll see how they do moving forward, but for now, let's turn our attention back to the winner. We're joining Shox and Faker for our Verizon post-game interview.
Indeed, we already get to talk to Faker on our first day of the group stage. What a treat, and what a treat that game was. So Faker, in terms of your first game, it was incredibly good from the side of T1. How happy are you with the performance of the team here versus EDG?
네, 이제 그룹 스테이지 첫 경기를 치르셨는데요. 정말 굉장한 퍼포먼스가 나왔습니다. 이번 경기를 토대로 경기력에 어느 정도 만족하시나요?
일단 첫 경기를 되게 깔끔하게 이긴 것 같아서 만족스럽고 생각했던 것보다 더 경기력이 좋았던 것 같습니다.
I'm pretty satisfied with the fact that we actually was able to get an even cleaner performance and a win this time around, and I think we played even better than we expected.
Well, it was very convincing indeed. The last time we saw you was, of course, in the LCK finals. What was the focus of the things that you had to work on, you feel, coming into Worlds?
LCK 결승전이 끝나고 이제 월즈를 준비하면서 어느 부분에 가장 집중하셨나요?
일단 저희가 부족했던 팀워크를 좀 중심적으로 맞추려고 했고 또 이제 조금 더 잘 적응하는 것에 대해서 준비를 많이 했습니다.
So we mostly focus on our teamwork and also adapting to the new environment.
Of course. There's a lot to say about Champions Queue and all the pro players getting to get the experience there. What do you think about Champions Queue? And do you feel like it's helping you in your practice for Worlds?
이제 많은 분들이 또 챔스큐에 지금 많은 관심을 갖고 계신데요. 챔스큐의 경험은 또 어땠는지, 의견은 어떠신지, 그리고 좀 월드 준비에 도움이 되는 것 같나요?
확실히 좀 더 빠르게 저희가 연습을 진행할 수 있게 되는 것 같아서 좋은 것 같고, 그리고 많이 플레이할수록 좋은 점이 많은 것 같습니다.
So obviously we can start practicing even faster, which is really good. And also I think, yeah, it's really helpful. The more you play, I think you get more kind of advantage of it.
Of course, and maybe that helped with that performance today. Final question. You're a 3-time world champion. The last time that you were able to hoist the Summoners Cup was right here in North America. Do you feel that it's some kind of a good luck that you get to play here in America? And how do you feel about T1's chances this year?
네, 페이커 선수는 또 2회 우승자이자 마지막으로 우승했을 때가 바로 이 북미 무대였잖아요. 그런 만큼 좀 좋은 약간 행운이 따를 것 같은 기분이 있는지 또 이번에 T1이 우승할 확률 어느 정도로 보시나요?
사실 경기장에 대해서 그렇게 기억을 잘 하진 못했었는데 직접 와보니까 모든 것들이 조금씩 기억나기 시작했고 확실히 훨씬 더 좀 기분 좋게 경기를 할 수 있는 것 같고 이번에도 느낌이 좋은 것 같습니다.
Yeah, obviously, I thought I don't really have clear memories of the venue and stuff, but once I actually came here, I was having all the memories coming back. So yeah, I'm feeling extra better, and I think the chances are pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, a great start. Thank you so much, Faker. Thank you, Keystone, as well. A lot of Faker fans in the building, and I'm sure over at the State Farm analyst desk as well.
Thank you so much, Shox, and congrats to T1 for taking their first win of the group stage. A quick reminder to everyone that North America has hosted Worlds 3 times, 2012, 2013, 2016. Faker's been to 2 of those World Championships, and he's won both of them. So I love that we asked that question there at the end of the day. Also love the fact, calling back to New York, of course, Madison Square Garden. Now we're in the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden, but when we were in that giant venue, some people tout Rock's SKT at the time, T1 now, as one of the greatest series, if not the greatest series the Worlds has ever seen. There's some magic here in this city.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if you took a poll, that would be most people's best series of all time at Worlds. And, you know, Faker being a part of that, being a part of that crowd here in New York. I'm sure some of the fans here today were there then. So it's definitely something special to be part of.
All right, Dag, let me bring you to the draft, because one of the things we had talked about was the junglers for both squads. And there were 2 champions in particular that were named. Lee Sin on one side, Vi on the other. We got them both. But that is a very distinct shift from what we've seen in a lot of the other matchups today already.
Yeah, and I think the Vi in particular is one that kind of stands out, right? Because we've kind of seen a lot of the LPL teams more willing to bring it out. We saw RNG and Plains bring it out. And I think it's something that JJ has looked good in the past. We even heard Keitra talking about on the desk, where this is something that has been good in playoffs. But Azale, I know you were talking backstage about like the way he executed on the Vi just wasn't up to scratch.
Yeah, I mean, Keitra wasn't super impressed with it. I mean, we can run through some of the highlights, but there was one thing in particular that, you know, I was really surprised in, and that generally